All right, joining us now, Alina Habba, legal spokeswoman for Donald Trump and general counsel for Save America PAC. Welcome back to you. Good to have you on the program. So the trial resumed a short time ago. We saw the former president re-enter the courtroom there, and we know that the ex-lawyer for Stormy Daniels is on the stand. Testimony continues at this hour. What are your thoughts at this point in the trial?
I think that the defense is doing a really great job of cross-examining the attorney for Stormy. As we've heard, he's asking him about the definition of extortion. Why is he doing that? Well, it's very clear. There is a very fine line between bribing somebody, extorting them because you know that they're a political figure, they're a famous person, and trying to get them to pay off someone. And as an attorney, I can tell you that that gentleman is in trouble. There is no question what is going on is completely fundamentally wrong. As a counsel for anyone, this person was not acting as an attorney who is brokering an extortion deal. That's what we heard today. I look forward to the rest of the cross-examination, but let's not forget the other thing that's happening, the unconstitutional gag order on President Trump. This keeps coming up as a distraction to the American public because they cannot win a case that is absolutely flawed and lacking factual basis to Donald Trump. We know that. This was brought by Michael Cohen. We know that. We know his credibility is minimal, if existent at all. I experienced that myself with my own trial. And we're seeing a complete and utter destruction of the American bedrock constitutional First Amendment and Eighth Amendment, frankly. And it's sad. It's truly sad.
So let's bring up just for a second here Keith Davidson's testimony, particularly on the point of how he considered the payments to Karen McDougal and to Stormy Daniels be classified. The case revolves around, according to Alvin Bragg, financial records being falsified, being called legal payments instead of something else or legal expenses to cover up the commission of some sort of election interference. Well, Keith Davidson said, well, he would consider those payments to be called consideration, which is a legal term for something that parties exchange in a contract. So Alvin Bragg's whole case would have seemed in that moment to have evaporated.
Let's talk about something else that nobody's mentioning. Hillary Clinton, with the Russia hoax, paid the FEC a violation for paying her attorneys to hide payments for that. OK, now, is she in jail? No. 150%. If it's Trump, they will go after you. If it's anybody else, you pay an $8,000. I believe her fine was $8,000. How's that not a paper crime? If we're going to use this standard, it's got to apply to everybody. And you know what? That's not going to be very pretty for the American people, and that's not going to be pretty for the left-wing Democrats. They come after Trump. They're coming after America. It has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with us. There is no campaign finance violation. In fact, that's what Michael Cohen pled guilty to. The same man that perjured himself in my attorney general case and admitted to it on the stand. We are clearly in a very much political lawfare environment. And as Americans, both Democrat and Republican, if we don't stop it, we are in trouble as a country.
Are you any more optimistic than you were last week when we spoke to you about the outcome of this trial for the former president?
Listen, like I said, and I've said time and time again, the president has done nothing wrong. If we are in a fair environment, if we are not in Manhattan, where they intentionally select a venue, which, despite our motions to move it, is intentionally blue. It is a blue city. And the pool is blue. It is what it is. And that's all intentional. Georgia, Washington, D.C., you cannot get it twisted that this is all by design by the Biden administration. So am I hopeful? My client did nothing wrong. If he was given a fair jury, if he was given a fair trial, if he was given a fair trier of fact who doesn't need to recuse himself, I would have zero concern. My concern is that we have politics permeating our courtroom, that my client is truly become a victim of political lawfare and persecution. And as a result, I've seen in court his treatment be very different than anybody else I've represented. So my concern is the same as his is these are witch hunts. They're designed to stop him from the campaign. And he truly shouldn't even be in the courtroom, frankly. The fact that he's there every day is an injustice. So, you know, I'm hoping that the jury will listen to the witnesses, listen to the fact that they have no facts, and that we'll get the right result, which is that he should be completely vindicated.
Really quickly, Alina, just wanted to ask about something else Keith Davidson said, and that was Michael Cohen's state of mind after the election. Davidson said that Cohen was despondent. He was outraged that Trump did not bring him to Washington with him. He thought that he was going to be maybe chief of staff, maybe even attorney general. Is he sort of painting a picture of somebody who may become vindictive?
May become vindictive is an understatement. When I questioned Michael Cohen on the stand, I asked him if there was ever a podcast that he didn't mention President Trump or a member of the Trump family. And he admitted that there was not. Why? Because he's profited from the Trumps in every regard, while he worked for them, while he turned against them, and while he has tried to instigate witch hunts for his own benefit, financially and otherwise. This is a person that clearly is disgruntled. They were upset that he didn't go to Washington. That's been widely known. And then after the president went to Washington, he put his name on as counsel for him, despite the president having absolutely no knowledge. We've seen all of this with Michael time and time again. I've had the pleasure of meeting him several times, deposing him. I think his credibility will come through as a zero. And if not, I mean, quite honestly, there's enough history there with him going to jail for his own crimes to prove that way. So we'll see what happens. But quite honestly, let's not forget, this is an 8-year-old case. The statute of limitations is way past. Nobody brought it until President Trump announced he was running. And this is all based on somebody named Michael. It's a joke.
Alina Habba, really appreciate you joining us. Good to have you on the program.
Thanks, Alina.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.